Did BC elections give us the full story about what really led them to reveal that they had failed to count an 861 ballot box and discovered voting discrepancies across nearly 70 ridings? I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, bringing you another report full of reasons for you to visit bcelectionintegrity.com to join others in our growing campaign demanding an independent review be conducted for the handling of our 43rd general election in BC. Let's break it down.
We also determined that a single ballot box from Prince George Mackenzie had not been counted or reported at initial count. This box contained approximately 861 ballots, the majority which were cast for Prince George Mackenzie candidates.
It's official. According to Elections BC, after the final and judicial counts, the BC NDP led with a minimum majority of 47 seats, the BC Conservatives securing the opposition with 44 and the Greens with 2. Swearing-in ceremonies have also wrapped up for the province's newly elected and returning MLAs, including members of Premier David Eby's costly cabinet, which, although the party holds 10 fewer seats than the last party's term, has more ministers in it. And despite Eby's so-called pledge to bring down costs for families, one of his first orders of business after being re-elected was to grant new titles and significant pay raises to 46 out of his 47 MLAs. I kid you not. But there's still a bigger controversy that has many of you still grappling. And that's that many issues were surrounding our electoral process that got us here in the first place. And today, you'll hear from a guest who has some information to add to that mess. He goes by the name Remanded on X, and he wishes to be anonymous, but you're still going to want to hear what he has to say. He's done extensive analyzing of BC's 43rd general election results, beginning with election night, and then also including the awaited estimated 49,000 mail-in, special and absentee ballots, which turned out to actually be closer to 65,000 votes, and of course the outcomes of the recounts and judicial counts. It's a lot of data. And for the purposes of this report, I can't put it all inside. So I'm going to focus on a peculiar pattern of events I discovered when looking into some of the discrepancy findings that Remanded has been trying to sound the alarm on to the public and to BC elections. You may recall that on September 4th, more than 2 weeks after the election night, the Chief Electoral Officer released an astonishing statement informing the public that a judicial count was needed after discovering that an entire 861 ballot box had not been counted in the Prince George Mackenzie riding.
While the contents of this ballot box are not enough to affect the outcome of the election in Prince George Mackenzie or in any other electoral district, the district electoral officer in that district has applied for a partial judicial recount to count these ballots such that they can be included in the final results for the election. Yesterday afternoon, this application was granted by the court. The judicial recount in Prince George Mackenzie must take place by November 12. All parties and candidates affected by these reporting errors have been notified and informed of the measures being taken to address them. These mistakes were a result of human error. Our elections rely on the work of over 17,000 election officials from communities across the province. Election officials were working 14 hours or more on voting days, and on final voting day in particular, faced extremely challenging weather conditions in many parts of the province. These conditions likely contributed to these mistakes.
But it didn't stop there. In that same statement, the CEO, Anton Bogman, also admitted that he'd issued an extremely rare order of the chief electoral officer to correct several other reporting errors that weren't reflected in what we were told was a final count.
Elections BC has an absolute mandate to ensure that all ballots are accurately counted and reported in our elections. The identification and correction of these errors resulting from the election official mistakes demonstrates the checks and balances our system has to make sure that election results are accurate.
Acknowledging that procedural violations occurred where elections officials in 5 districts failed to report out of district results that were recorded on at least 11 tabulators. Now, we were told that these errors were discovered due to EBC preparing for other judicial counts in 2 ridings, including the most narrowly won NDP seat, Surrey Guildford, by only 2 seats. And not to worry, though, because the mistakes would not affect the overall election, and that the discrepancies accounted for approximately 2,500 ballot account omissions, impacting a small number of votes in 69 electoral districts. Now, where had I heard that approximate 2,500 number before? Oh, that's right. It's just like the 2,577 number of discrepancies the remanded detected and had been flagging on X and to EBC directly days prior. And here is how the remanded found them.
Able to find the discrepancies when I separated initial count complete going into final count from the 26th to the 28th. So basically, there was the final number for initial count on the 25th, and adding the 66,074 votes that they gave us. That included mail-in ballots, assisted telephone, specialty, mobile, and I believe write-in. I was seeing minus votes and then additional votes in 90 of 93 ridings. So with Juan de Fuca, the Juan de Fuca Malahat, they ended up having the highest additional votes of the 90 ridings that had errors. So with Juan de Fuca, they ended up having 98 too many votes going into the 28th of October to count absentee ballots.
Okay. So we pay tens of millions of dollars for Elections BC to operate during elections, and maybe it was just a coincidence that Remanded, a citizen not on EBC's payroll, started telling EBC that he was finding 2,577 discrepancies before EBC decided to tell the public that they found approximately 2,500 discrepancies, right? And are we to also believe that they found that out due to preparing for judicial counts? Who knows? Could be. Except what else is strange is that this isn't the first time that EBC changed their tune after the remanded pointed out something to them that he believed to be discrepancies. He also found discrepancies between what the public was being told on the counts versus his count when he tallied up what had happened on election night versus the day after. He found approximately a 5,000 vote discrepancy at that time.
Yeah, so I mean that was something that I saw on election night, just like one minute after midnight when all the media coverage stopped. There was I saw a drop in Green Party votes, and then there was like an additional 5,000 votes just not adding up when I added all the candidates and parties up. And so the following day, I called Elections BC, and I was on the phone for like 15 minutes. They didn't know what I was talking about. They asked supervisors and people that did counts. They didn't know what I was talking about. And so they wanted me to give credentials and so that they could submit an inquiry. And then the next day, they fixed it, and I didn't hear back from them. The way they fixed the results was they basically added the votes that I saw that were missing, and they added 5,488 votes to the independent category on their results page.
So, what the heck is up with that? Who's right? Who's wrong? Naturally, I reached out to Elections BC for some clarification as to what is going on regarding the remanded's claims of errors and what they are telling the public they found after they are making changes. You should know that I've asked EBC many questions while investigating the handling of our election for you, and I have found them to be prompt and even in depth in their responses. Except this time. Despite me specifically drawing attention to the emails the remanded had sent to them and asking why it took them until after receiving those emails to report similar changes to the public, EBC's communication director glossed over the references to the remanded's emails to them and instead wrote some of what was already stated in the former statement, and added that the identification and correction of these errors resulting from election officials' mistakes demonstrates the checks and balances our system has to make sure the election results are accurate. Strange. And far from the only strange finding caught by remanded, including one that on election night nearly every single riding, including ones where seats were called, appeared to have 2 uncounted for ballot boxes at the end of election night. For reference, I'm referring to after the preliminary count concluded, which left the NDP sitting at 46 seats and BC Conservatives at 45 and the Greens at 2, hence too close to call. And BC Elections claimed on its site that over 98% of the overall votes had been counted. Don't believe me? Take a look at this.
Could make that argument.
So we should actually point out, as you see these results coming in, you'll see that there's only 2 ballot boxes remaining that have not been reported yet. And so there is a delay in getting some of these results because we've been told from Elections BC that the last 2 ballot boxes are getting extra validation, just to be extremely sure. And that's what's holding us up. We thought that the results would be all in by 9 p.m., but what time is it now? It's 9:52.
And I remember asking you, what are we going to do if the results are in at 8:45? What are we going to talk about for the next 2.5 hours?
Yeah, so clearly
We're
there's
finding
still,
plenty to talk about.
double checking the last 2 ballot boxes.
And with 2 ballot boxes left, any margin below 350, 400 probably is still in play.
I noticed something, and that is that when you look at most of the races, it looks like 2 polls have yet to report. Tell us what you noticed exactly.
Yeah, no, it seems in every one, it's 20 out of 22 polls reporting, and yeah,
I've been keeping track, almost every poll.
Yeah, and so as a result of that, until those last 2 sets of polls are counted in at least 5 seats that are still very much at play, we really won't know what the outcome tonight is in terms of who forms government for the majority, or if there's just going to be a minority at the 46-45-2 level.
And there doesn't seem to be much difference between whether in the lower mainland or in urban areas.
No, it's right across. So I don't know if it's a
Richmond Centre. I'm looking at. There's 2 polls outstanding in just about every riding right now. We've got 2 polls outstanding, and this is the new automatic tabulation system that's being used. It's supposed to speed things up. We're told, according to Elections BC, I just went onto their website, and they say that 98% of all votes will be counted, or as many as 98% will be counted on election night. Does that mean we're going to be here all night waiting for the last 2%?
So what's that about? Why were we seemingly holding back on-site ballot boxes from so many ridings for extra validation, as the CTV reporter claimed EBC told them? Elections BC's communication director told me that the ballot boxes were counted on election night in accordance with the Election Act, and contrary to what the CTV reported, none went through extra validation or handling, adding that before confirming that a ballot boxes from advanced voting and final voting have reported, election officials check that the results they have reported are complete as a quality assurance measure. Until the process is complete, results reporting on our website is shown as incomplete by 1 ballot box for in-district and out-of-district results reporting. Yet on their own site, they claim that on October 19th, election night, all of these districts finished counting their out-of-district results except for 3 districts. So why didn't changes to the count in all the other ridings reflect that the next day in the following update after election night? EBC further claimed that this quality is related to confirming that results from advanced voting and final voting had been entered into the results reporting system, and that they will be conducting a full review after the election to determine how we can improve our processes and training to prevent such mistakes in the future. Alas, they finally got something right, it seems. There needs to be a review, but not just an internal one, where the people responsible for these many errors are looking into themselves, but instead a non-internal, truly independent review. And if you agree, make sure to take 5 seconds of your time to go to bcelectionintegrity.com. Join hundreds of others who have already fired off an email to the correct authorities demanding for that to happen. Drea Humphrey for Rebel News. Did you know at Rebel News we don't take a penny of funding from the state or advertisements from the government like over 95% of media in Canada? Instead, if you want to see investigative reports like this, we rely on people like you to make any kind of donation you can. So if you value my investigation into the integrity of BC's election, please help us continue to make these reports possible by donating what you can at bcelectionintegrity.com. We appreciate your support.